talking. The beginning of everything starts with words. Look at the beginning story in Genesis. Genesis means the beginning. And connected with our 10 fingers, because we have 10 fingers for a reason, we're told there are 10 utterances with which the world was created. Every time it says, and God said, and something was created. Now, if you know how to count, at least up to 10, you will realize that there are only 9 times when it says, and God said, in the story of the creation. So where's number 10? Where's the number 10? Or maybe it's the number 1. I don't know. 1 is missing. Some word is missing here. And well, the number 10 is the very beginning. The very first word, the word Bereshit, is in itself an utterance that created something. Well, at the beginning, everything is a word. Everything is a language. From one cell to another, everything is talking to. In the beginning, everything is in the beginning. Everything is in this word, Bereshit. Now, we have a beginning of our talk. I just said it. Now, let's plunge into the meat of the subject. Now, let's keep far ahead of the beginning. We started with Bereshit at the very beginning of creation. Now, let's move from Genesis and let's see what's been going on in Bamidbar, in Numbers, in the previous Torah weekly portions that we read every week. There's a lot of things that had to do with words and speech. A lot. If you go through it, you see how many things. So let's see. There's different roles that words have to make us up as human. Okay? We are human beings. We are defined by our communication and language. When God created man, he says, this is a special soul. What's so special about it is the ability to communicate precisely. Because animals also have communication, but it's not as sophisticated as human beings. So we have a very sophisticated level of communication. Let's see. What happened in the previous portions? We hear about the half-brothers of Moses, Eldad and Medad. They're prophesying that Moses is about to die, and that sends a panic to his main student, Joshua. And these are what I would call these kind of words, the crystal ball word, like, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen word. And then it can act in 2 different ways. It can make you panic. So-and-so said, she saw it in my life with the numbers and with the words and the thing, and she saw it in my life, this is what's going to happen to me, and this, and I should do this, and I should do that. So I call them panicking crystal ball words. They could be for the good, could be for the bad. Then we hear about another episode with Miriam. I love Miriam. I admire her. She's my kind of, person I look up to. Moses' sister. She talked about her brother like he was part of the group. They were all prophets. She was prophet. Her brother, they were all prophets in the family. And she talks like he's part of the group and no different. Well, she ignored some facts she didn't know, and she didn't have any mean or bad intention, but clearly there was a mistake. And her words of judgment cost her some time out. Yeah, time out. So this is what I call word of judgment. You think about someone and you talk about the people, you judge events, you judge God, you judge things. The next speech we read about is about the spies that were sent with Moses' original intention to explore the land and to come back and give a craving to the people that were waiting and tell them, okay, now you see, this is what's waiting for you. And he sent their spies to get everybody pumped up about going there. Well, these people that he sent were in a very high position in the desert, and they got scared. They did not think that going into the land, they couldn't retain that position of high power. And once the land is settled, so unconsciously, they found issues with their findings. Okay, this is the bias. I don't know about implicit bias. Any bias is a bias. I don't care what they call it. But it happens to everyone. It happens to politicians, to scientists. They think that they're going to find something and they prove it with, we see that this is what we find. It happens to CEOs about their company, about parents. This is what we want. That's what we're going to do with our kids. It happens with anyone who could be afraid of losing grip. So I don't know, call this. It happens. What happens? This bias. We come up with the words are biased. They came up with a report that was biased. So this is another instances where words are found in the last few parasha, words of being biased. So these people, what did they do? They came back and they say, listen, this land is full of giants. We are like ants in their eyes. But the thing is, the giants didn't even pay attention or look at them. So, but they thought of themselves so small and incapable of conquering this land or going there. They labeled themselves as minuscule, little, incapable being. So here we see the words that reveal what the person thinks of themselves. These are the words that tell our stories. This is the narrative we hide behind, and not only we hide behind the narrative, but we're going to find all proofs to support it. In other words, once we have it, we're going to show you how right we are to have this story about ourselves. So listen to the next one. Watch out. The spies were sent out to bring back good news, but when they came back, they sent a wave of despair into the nation, right? This is impossible, can't do it. Now, does this sound familiar? Yeah. The media telling you something terrible that is going to happen? No? Yeah? So there's nothing new under the sun. This is old stories, you know. That's right. But it happens all the time. It happens. The people that want to control other people, they send you words, they send you, because words trigger our thoughts, triggers our emotion. The emotion happens to direct our abilities to act and to function. So these spies, they execute what we call nowadays a mass formation. Yeah? Everybody's following along with the bad program and despair sets in the nation. And the people say in the chapter 14, verse 2, they say, here's the word, "Oh, we wish we had died in the desert," they said. And meaning, instead of going forward to face the land, look, there is a challenge maybe, but you know, you're going to get help. This is your job, your mission. And the land has been promised to your forefathers for many centuries. Now you have a chance. This is your chance. Do you know what happened next? Hashem said, "This is what you want?" Because they said, "Oh, we wish we died in the desert instead of doing this walls and things like that." Hashem said, "This is what you want? This is what you get." So, and that's what happened. They all died in the desert, not the women, not the children, but all the people of that generation basically really, they sneezed or they didn't get up in the morning, something like that. So they died in the desert. And here you go, 40 years, bit by bit, they all perish. So what are these words called? In India, they have a tradition that there is a special tree. I don't know what it's called exactly, but if you sit under the tree, even if you don't know that you're sitting under that special tree, whatever you say is going to happen. It's like, the magic, whatever. So like a genie, what's your wish and it happens. So I call this self-prophecy. Because they say, we wish this, okay, this is what happened to them. Self-fulfilled. Yeah, self-fulfilled. Yeah, self-fulfilled prophecy. So now we have to be careful because all these words are words we do it all the time. I'm not saying these people did something wrong and we perish. I'm just saying we're here to learn from the lessons a little bit. But I'm not saying that about them because I'm doing that myself, so I'm not going to judge them for something I would do myself. But what I'm saying is we are here to learn how careful we have to be with our words because they have such a power. And the power of the world, of the words, it makes such a huge difference. Everything. So people died with COVID or people died from COVID. Just one little word. How much do you count? How do you count? If somebody says, oh, I would love to go on vacation, versus somebody says, I must get out of here. So this, yeah, there's a big difference. Or expansionism. Or you give a fancy word to someone, expansionism. Sounds really great for our nation, right? What about stealing and taking someone else's property, right? So the word you use, you have a different impression. So I want to tell you a story that happened to me when I first arrived. I was newly married, and somebody said to me, dropped me off in front of Ralph and says, I will wait for you in front of the store. Now, remember, I'm French. So I understood English, but the little nuances, and this is what I want to talk about, the little nuances, I didn't understand. So I'm here with my car and I'm waiting in the front of the store. In the front of the store, near the cashier.
She was probably waiting outside, but you thought she
That's right. That's right. And I got it for my grade. I really got told off like crazy. But it's like a little bit of a difference in words. In English, you have so many of these little words. Depending on where you put the word or what you add after the word, it could be 2 letters and it makes a huge difference. So the Hebrew language is very precise. Every letter, every dot, every cantillation, everything counts because everything has meaning. Because again, our words are going to influence our thoughts are going to influence our emotions are going to influence our attitude is going to influence how we act. So now that we have these things about words and talk, let's talk about the man of the week. The man of the week. So his name is synonymous with the richest person in the world. And you know who is the richest person in the world now?
No, Musk.
Sure. Okay.
So different opinion. Anyway, they figure it out. It's hard to say who is the richest person because now people have companies and everything is split up. So there's a lot of different answers, right? So who was the richest person 100 years ago?
100%.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. Doesn't matter.
So one of them, because you can see different opinions. One of them, the Tsar, Nikolai II.
Wow.
Anyway, he died. He died by a firing squad. Took him out, shot, died. Yeah. Anyway, all these people died anyway. That's how it goes. They all die. They can be the richest, doesn't prevent them from not dying. Wow. Okay, let me introduce you to this man of the week. Okay, well, in the days when the Jews were slaved in Egypt, there was one Israelite man who was not only he was not a slave, but his whole tribe had not bought in the government lie of being nice and kind and obey to the mandates of going to work for the sake of the nation's welfare. Yeah. So the tribe of Levi, they were thinking, they were morally and spiritually very attuned, and they learned from the past. And they are not volunteer for being morally and physically enslaved by the medias of the time. The man's father died. He was dying. And as he was dying, he revealed to his son a secret. The secret cache of one of the immense treasures that King Joseph had buried. He told him where I was, at least one of them. And because...
But Joseph was a king.
He was viceroy. Sorry, viceroy. So due to this enormous fine, Korach, because that's his name, that's who we're talking about, became the richest man. So now people in the day used to say, rich like Korach, like who you want to be rich like? Yeah, rich like Korach, that was the expression. He had the power, he had the wealth, enormous wealth. He had a nice, or you can say spoiled wife. He had very nice kids, grown-up children. He had everything a person can ask for, except for the fact that a man always wishes for more than he has, because we're a spiritual being and we always want more. So he wanted more than what he had. And Korach could not wish for material things because basically he had it all. So what do you want to give this person? Money, treasure, he had it already. So he wanted more in a spiritual sense. He wanted the prestige of a position. And because of this, or maybe because his wife's lack of common sense or appreciation for what she had already, his thinking got twisted. He viewed the position that were attributed to his cousins as they should be attributed to him. So he couldn't figure out why he was left of the equation. The whole family is getting position and he's left out. And he did not understand that these positions were not according to genealogy. They were according to merit. And so in the middle of a place called Chatzerot, Chatzerot means in Hebrew courtyards. Courtyards, yeah? I tell you, we don't always understand this, but you know, it used to be in LA, like most of the street, the front yard would be open. And my mother would come from France and say, I don't understand. People have a nice, beautiful home. How come they don't put a wall around their front yard? I said, no, this is LA. We don't do that. Now people are doing that. Yeah. A friend in Denver took me to a place called Cherry Hill Street. And it's a beautiful neighborhood that has a park in the middle of 2 rows of gorgeous mansions. But as you walk in this path that, you know, turns and, you know, it's so beautiful near Little Brook, all the houses, their yard is open. And in other words, if you're on the path, there's no wall, you can just walk on their lawn and it's totally open. So that makes that neighborhood very special because instead of people barricading behind gates and, fences, it's completely open. So, but usually what people do when they want to be separated, they make a courtyard. In other words, I'm separated from your house. This is mine and this is not yours, right? So in that place called Chatzerot, which of course has deeper meaning than just the name, this is the place that Korach picked for his mutiny. I call it mutiny, like the old British captain of the ship. They called mutiny because, you know, what are you going to call this? A protest, a rally, a riot, a rebellion? You see that according to the words you give it, you look at it a different way, right? So this is what happened. Anyway, so how does it proceed? So we're going to get away from the kindergarten explanation. He's a bad man who ended up badly. He actually was a very, very smart man. He died a very sensational death, which made him even more famous. And the media had a blast reporting what kind of earth-shattering death he had. Okay, who was he? He was a very great man. He was a leader. He had a great lineage. Descendants of Jacob, descendants of Levi, descendants of all the great people of his time. And he gathered, and that meant a lot to him. His ascendance meant a lot to him. He knew where it's coming from. He gathered hundreds of people on his side. He talked to them. Remember, he talked to them. That's how he got them. He talked to them. Because we're talking about talking. He talked to these people. He had arguments. He used his speech to ridicule the position of leadership. So he is there ridiculing the position of leadership. At the same time, this is exactly what he wants, a position of leadership. So you understand how his motives and his things behind were not very compatible. So he said, listen, everybody in this nation is very holy. We don't need a leader. And he, in effect, contradicted himself, because he actually wanted the leadership position, because he had this quality of leadership. He wanted to use it. But anyway, so whatever he did, it made it worse. Now, there are men in the world that are more powerful than the rulers of countries. Behind the scenes, they direct the puppets. They direct the presidents. They direct the politicians. They have the money. They own the media, and they influence the population. So, do they want to be president? No, that would be a job that they would have to do. They like it better to be in their position. They need something that gives them a purpose. You see, they have all the money they want, and they have the power. So now what else do you want? Okay? They can buy anything. There's one thing that is hard to buy, but it's something that most people, once they have a lot of money, have a need for, and that's contribution. They need to feel that they made this world better, that they were important enough to leave their imprint on the world. So they correctly or incorrectly, they have ideas on how to improve the world. Like it gives them a higher purpose or raison d'être. Yeah. So Korach was super, super rich. The position of Moses as a king, he did not envy, because he already had all the power with his money. But what he wanted was some respect and some something that gives him even a higher feeling about himself. And so he commanded respect. I don't care what you said, who it was or whatever. It's like somebody said, listen, if the president tells me come into my office, I don't care who he is. I don't care if I voted for him or if I'm against it. He's the president, I'm going to go. Like power imposed on you, somebody is so powerful, you just go. So he had been an advisor in the Egyptian court. He was a wise man. He knew he can advise. He knew he can lead. He was a righteous man. What was his problem, and why did he end up being swallowed up? The first word, it says, Vayikach Korach. And Korach took. And he doesn't tell you what he took. Doesn't tell you. So Rashi, the famous commentary about 900 years ago, he had a question. He said, he took what? So he said, he took himself aside. He took himself aside from the others. He took himself and separated himself from the rest of the community, because his heart was pulling him to do this, and he followed his desire for greatness. The second explanation that Rashi gives is that, what does it mean he took? He means he won over the people to his camp. He was a leader. He knew how to use the words to convince people and brainwash them, because he told them, you're gonna be better. But that was crazy, because if he becomes the leader, who are they gonna be? So what they joining, it's like a lot of things don't make sense. But in any case, he talked to them. He knew marketing, he knew copywriting, he knew mediatization, he knew propaganda, the best convincing technique, he knew hypnosis, brainwashing, all in one shot. In other words, when you say he took, Vayikach, and it means he manipulated the people with words. And this is the heart of the subject, the word, the speech, the talking. Now, we are going to talk about the 5 categories of speech. So I just want to say, it's not just in our speech. Korach was named after the son of Eliphaz. And I heard somebody said this week, listen, I don't care what you think, but somebody who's a bad guy, you don't name your kid after him because he makes a bad impression. It just has this power, So be careful how you name the kids. It affects the person. So the words we use have power. And the words we tell ourselves, the name we are called, or we call ourselves, they bring about the thoughts we have. And then in turn, they engender certain feelings. Like, I want to tell you a personal story. My mother's name was Emily. And when she was going out with my father, they found out my paternal grandmother was very upset because she had the same name. And it's true, it's a problem. And it creates a lot of problems in marriage when the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law have the same name. But in any case, so what did they find? What did they do? My mother changed her name. She was called now Evelyn instead of Emily. And she did that. I didn't even know my mother's name was Emily. Never heard of it because nobody called her like that. Once my paternal grandmother passed away, little by little, my mother started telling people, what's your name? Like when people would ask her, what's your name? She would say, Emily. So who? What? She says, yeah, that's my real name. And for all these years, she was operating under Evelyn to please my father, to please her mother-in-law. And she had a lot of trouble from it. And it was very hard for her. She was putting herself in a mode because her name was Evelyn now. But she wanted to go back to who she really was. And when she took back her name Emily, it started coming up a lot of things like, how could I have done this? How did I not answer to this? How did I bear with this? Like, how people do that to me and I didn't say anything? All of a sudden, her youthful, personality came back to the front. So names has a very big impact, right? Okay, so in any case, so the word we use have power. The words we tell ourselves have power. And the name we call ourselves have power. And they bring about the thoughts we have and in turn engender certain feeling. Johnson said, language is the dress of thoughts. There's a definite interaction between what we say and what we think. And vice versa. It goes both directions. What we say influence what we think, and what we think influence what we say, right? So the power of speech, because it's the proper of the human being, we have to be very careful about. And I'm just going to point out something that everybody notices. It's very obvious. Language has been canceled. We call about canceled culture, whatever people want to do, but really what's happening is
Texting.
Huh?
Because of texting and smart.
Not just that, because the power that if you read a book from 100 years ago and you look at how it's written, and you take a book written nowadays and you look at how it's written, unless it's very well written, you don't know if it's the same language. The songs, do you remember the songs that you had to remember all the words of the songs? It was a whole story in the song, right? Now it's like one thing and they keep repeating it. There's no more words, there's no more stories. This is what you can hear. I don't know if you're going to understand what I'm going to say. I'm going to read it so that I don't make any mistakes because it's a complicated sentence.
Who are you quoting?
Huh?
Who are you quoting?
I'm quoting somebody you might hear in the street, anywhere. well, like I was going there and I don't know, like all of a sudden, I mean, what's the F? And then I like got out, you see, and you know what I mean? I was just trying, I was not getting it. Oh my gosh, out there, no way, done with it, just like that, yeah. Okay, this is how people are now talking. And this is the greatest misuse of the language. Somebody used to say about people sending a text or email or whatever, or letter. People would send a letter and they write 2 words and then ship the letter, send the card. And he said, the people of Wells Fargo that went under snow and rain and attack and went days and days through all the dangers to bring a letter to someone. This is what a mail means. This is what a letter means. Nowadays, you just like, you write 2 words, love, so-and-so, opla, you send it. So it's like, it's everything has been diminished and diminished. So it's like a very big misuse of what we have as, using the language. There's no adjective, there's no real sentence, there's repeating the same word again and again. But this is cheating. It's cheating because we're not using something that we have. And when we talk to ourselves, we do the same thing. So, because either we're ignorant, but not everybody is a writer like Stella. So either we're ignorant or we are lazy to find the right word to say exactly what we mean. And so let's say we say to a child, "You're so stupid." Really what we mean is okay, now that you spilled and there's a mess on the floor, I'm going to have more work and I'm going to have to clean it, and that upsets me. Instead, we say, "Oh, you're so stupid." Or we say, "I'm so stupid." And we don't really mean that. We really mean, I don't have the tool, the knowledge, the skills to deal with this situation appropriately. We talk to ourselves badly, and we're not finding the precise speech. So how about, "I'm so fat," or "I'm useless," or "I'm a nobody." All these things are not truth. They're just easy ways of dealing with the situation and finding a quick thing to say, when really, if we look deeper into it, it's not true at all. So we kill ourselves with words because they're not true. And it's like that. You have to translate your words. You have to translate your sentence. Just like you have to translate, "You're so stupid." You have to translate. In real estate, it's very common. We translate all the time. Like if a house is advertised as a charming, we know it's decrepit and falling apart. If you have a word that says need TLC, then it's a tear down. Or if you have like ready for the discriminate buyer, then it's overpriced. So you see, they make a very nice way of saying things. Why don't we say things nicely to ourselves too? Right? So we can think now, if we're aware of the problem, come up with correction. And instead of saying, "It was the most horrible fight we ever had. I was terrible." So you can say, "It was the most emotional, truthful talk we've had in months about how we really feel towards each other," which would be more true and more correct.
Too harsh words, Tommy.
But if you say, "Oh, we had the most terrible fight," that's the end of our marriage. So you can see how you can really, correct it and have a different impression of what's happening. So the words we use are very precious, and we shouldn't let them go cheap like that. Like the text message, the text messages that correct themselves, it's create a lot of problem. People send a text message, and there's something else that went through, and it can create fireworks. Okay, anyway, so here are the 5 categories of speech, of communication, that communication and language is really yesod according to Kabbalah. So this I took from Rabbi Yitzhak Ginsburg. Pay attention to the speech. The speech is a way to channel our superconscious into our conscious. So we take what's inside and we take it to the outside. So the verbal
Our inner conscious to our outer conscious.
that superconscious, in other words, our soul can be expressed through our words. So we have to be very careful. Okay? You're welcome to change if this is cold.
No.
Okay. So it's just like it's light. It comes out of the inside of ourselves and it goes and illuminates our surrounding. So the primary way to use language is to articulate words. The first thing is words of love. Words of love, compassion. The primary thing is to show with love, to sprinkle it like salt. And it's better to overdose than not enough. But I can say that it also, a lot of it has to do with cultural and the way you were brought up. In some cultures, people say, I love you, and they don't mean it. And in some cultures, they don't say it, but they really mean it a lot, and they show it through actions and other things. So we have to look at the way we speak, not just words, but also expressions of love. How we gave gift, what are the actions we gave, what are the special moments we spent together, what we did for the other person, how we touched the other person. These are also expressions. So expressions of love. So the first thing we're going to say is, because what we want is take this and put it in action. So how many times a day do you tell yourself you are loved and you are loving?
Not enough.
Okay. How many days a week do you get up and look in the mirror and you tell yourself, I love you? And somebody says to me, I don't even want to look in the mirror. I say, oh my gosh.
The difference between a man and a woman.
How many times a month do you take care of writing all your good qualities and what you appreciate yourself for? How many times does your love for yourself overpower the mistake that you've made? All right. So that's the number one, as words of love. Number two, words of constructive criticism. All right. I give art classes. So when we have time, I try to do it. The girls do like that. Everybody put up their art, and the other people have to say 3 good things about what and why they like it, what they like and why. And they also have to say 1 way to improve. So, and the person who made the art piece also has to do the same. Has to criticize her work by saying 3 good things that she likes and why, and 1 thing that she can improve upon. So, because a lot of people think that if you love yourself no matter what, then you're not going to grow. So to that, I give the example, which I really like, of the person who has a child. And do you think the mother says to the child, look, I love you, I love you, I love you. And whatever you are, I'm fine with you. And if you stay dirty 24 hours, it will be all right. Nobody does that, right? So just because you love yourself, it doesn't mean you're not going to clean yourself. You can love yourself for what you want. Doesn't mean you're not going to grow, right? It's not an impediment to correct oneself. So the words of constructive criticism. Tell the person or tell yourself what you want. Be clear. Your partner doesn't have to guess, or probably is not going to be able to guess, especially when it comes to delicate and intimate matters. If you don't express what you like or dislike, it's not going to be enjoyable or peaceful. It's either going to be, I'm quitting, or you're going to say, okay, I'm bearing with it, and one day it explodes. So the motivation behind the criticism constructive criticism, we're going to call it CC, is, it's hard because, look, everybody has to have a good intention when they do criticism. So mothers, they do that a lot. They criticize their kids because they're going to make them better. They're going to give the world a perfect child. And they criticize, then we're going to fix the husband, they're going to fix the kids, going to fix everybody. The thing is, when we do criticism, and this I think is the hardest thing, is that to come from a point of love. I did that one time. I had a friend who served for dessert, was overseas. She served for dessert blueberries. You think this is great, it's very healthy. But she drowned the blueberries in a bowl of, it's a white chemical, they pretend it's whipped cream. So I said, why do you do that? Blueberries are great. But she wanted to make it nice and fancy. She had a good intention. And so I said to her, it's not healthy for anyone. And we don't mind that it looks like blueberry instead of swimming in that white thing. And I really told her, I said, I'm telling you this because I love you and it's not healthy for you to do that. So the criticism has to come from a place of love. And that's the only way anyway it's going to sink in. Okay. So now my question to you is, how do you criticize yourself? Is it really out of love? That's the question.
No, it's out of disgust.
So that's why we start with words of love. We go into constructive criticism, but remember, in order to be constructive, it has to come from love. It has to come from the first words. And so the next time that you criticize yourself, it's not always bad to criticize oneself, but do I do this out of love for myself? That's all. Because if it's not, then you're not entitled to say them, basically. That's the halacha, like this. Okay, so words of praise and admiration. Every person has a soul. Every person has incredible quality. This quality might be not obvious. They're dormant to such an extent that the person is aware of their quality. They have to be sometimes reminded and brought up to the surface. So if you say, so I like you to give it a try right now. Choose a quality and say, I am, and give yourself a praise. How does it feel? Good. So this is where we want to be. This is where we want to feel like, like to ourselves, we don't have to be humble. It's like, you want to be humble in front of other people, but to ourselves, God give you that quality. So what is there to be humble about? I mean, you can be humble that it's God-given, but it doesn't mean that you don't have it. So you tell yourself you have that quality and you praise yourself again and again. Okay? So it helps sometimes to create a better vision of ourselves, to give ourselves this permission to praise ourselves. All right. So there is okay. So the more the appreciation, the more you recognize yourself, the more you recognize your potential, and the more it makes you love yourself or the other person. Because you don't want to love other person and not love yourself. You have to start with loving yourself. So number 4, words of control and direction. This is because when you don't have a direction, everything goes in and out. It's chaos. When there is chaos, you're not focusing on the things that matters. I plead guilty on this one. Hello. So there is the sun, there's the moon, they direct the affairs of the world. Does it mean that mankind has no autonomy? No, it means that we have an autonomy, we have a certain amount of control, and control does not take away our freedom. Being organized, being disciplined gives us freedom. This is a very hard one for me, but I say it, and so it has to I have to repeat it, to keep saying it, and to sing it in my mind. Discipline gives you freedom. Discipline our mind, discipline our thoughts. There's a lot of people that say, I can't sleep. Why can't you sleep? Because my mind keeps running. So 95% of the thoughts we have during any day is a repetitive thought. It's not making us go any further than where we are. But we just keep on going and going with it. So discipline our mind. When a thought is repetitive, okay, there's a certain amount, okay, and then we say, stop. And that's discipline of the mind, not just discipline in action, but discipline of the mind. So, and then the 5 kinds of speech that we should always entertain is the words of gratitude. Because gratitude, when one has done some work or achieved something good, even if it's small, we need to treat ourselves to a pat and to show our appreciation to ourselves. So most of the time we went with, when we finish this remodeling, when we finish the school year, when we, whatever it is going on, when we have now 1 million subscribers, I don't care what it is. You can't wait to give yourself recognition and gratitude when you until you reach the goal. It's the journey, it's the way that gets you there that is important. So every step you take, you appreciate what you did. If you're writing a book, every time you get on that computer, you appreciate you've done it. You don't need to wait to feel great until you finish the book. All right? So there's no ignoring of our progress. The progress is what's important, not just the goal. Yeah, so treat yourself for reward. Now, one word about Korach, the one that I wanted to explain, what does it mean that he separated himself? He took himself, okay? So he used the words to manipulate other people. And that's one explanation of Rashi. The second explanation of Rashi is he took himself apart. Everyone is different. We all know that. But the difference are inside of us. And Korach was very brilliant. His wisdom was that he was very profound. He knew we're diversified. He knew we're separate people. He knew not one person is the same. He knew we each a soul in itself. So what he's not getting there is that we all come from the same source. In other words, he focused on the separatedness of people. And in a way, he's right. It's not that he was wrong, because pay attention to this. In the hardest moment of our life, we are alone. We can be surrounded with 1 million friends. But when the challenge comes to us, the challenge is custom-made for us, and we have to face it. And the challenge is ours. So we have to face that challenge ourselves, not the friend, not the parents, not the neighbor, not the husband, not the kids. So what he thought was a true thought. We are alone. There is Rav Dov Soloveitchik who wrote a book, The Lonely Men of Faith. They said, I have wonderful friends, I have beautiful family, but I am alone. When I face God, I am alone. And so this is how Korach sees the world. And he sees everybody's different. Everybody's holy. What do we need? A leader. So in that way, he was very deep. But Hashem said the world has been created with unity and diversity. And this is one thing I think that people don't understand. There's a lot of people that say, oh, you racist, or you this, or you that, and you keep to your community, or you keep to your group, or you keep to your family, or you keep to your friend. People have to understand, there's unity and there is diversity And you have to use both. You have to use both. God is one. There's only one creative power that rules everything. But that creative power gave us a world that starts with a bet. Bereshit. At the beginning, everything starts with number 2. Bet, the numerical value of bet is 2. We are in a world of duality. We are in a world of diversity. And we have to embrace that just as much as we have to embrace that we're all human beings. We have to embrace that people are different. Different culture, different upbringing, different everything. And it's okay. In other words, the thing is that people now, they were trying to say, oh, you cannot say anything about this or about the color of your skin. It's God creation. Why can't you say anything about it? You know, God created the world in the very diverse thing. What, do we have all plains or do we have all mountains? Do we have all, quiet rivers or torrential, springs? No, there's all kinds. And all of this create a beautiful world. So you can't deny diversity, because diversity is what helps you achieve unity. You can't have unity by one thing being itself. It's not unity. Unity is when you have different things coming along together and joining. So when you have courtyards, because remember that Korach, he started his, whatever you call it, his gathering, riot, rebellion, rallies, whatever you want to say it. He started that in a place called Chatzerot. And Chatzerot means courtyard. It means everybody is separated. It's fragmentation. It's separation. And we're all individual, but our job is to identify with what ultimately brings us to the same source. To the God is one. That's the goal. And we're all different, but we are one at the same time. We become united. It's not that we're one. We become united because of the diversity. And because we're different, we complete each other, right? It's like in a company or in a family or in a couple, you're not exactly the same. But whatever you bring to the table, that's what makes it beautiful. Like a symphony. What does Netzach means? The attribute of Netzach is also the name for a conductor. Right. Lamnatseach means to the conductor. We read in the psalm, to the conductor. Why? It's the conductor. Everyone has their role. Everyone has their partition. Everybody has the instrument. Everybody has their reality. Everybody has their lives. But you have to be united by clinging to the higher power and the greater power. So here we have leaders. We have kings. We have influencers, counselors, whatever. And they're there supposedly to guide us to become united. Okay? Some of them do. Some of them have a big question mark on them. But the role of the people in power is to unite the different part of the people. And in our life, in our own courtyard, in our own life, we need to be wise. We need to be our own guide. We need to be our own counselor, and we need to be our own influencer. Use a fashionable word. We need to be wise, to be wide open, to see the purpose, to see the bigger vision of all the little parts that make us up, all the diversity that make us up, the good part and the not so good part, and the part that we are embarrassed about, and the part that we are proud of, and the part that everybody knows, and the part that are hidden, and the part that belong to our past, and the part that will belong to our future, and the part of now, and all these parts, we got to embrace it. Whoever we are, we have to embrace who we are. It's difficult. It's difficult. But this is...
It's a problem for every person to visit. It's a big problem. I will have all the struggle in our life because people don't do this. I don't want people to do this.
It's work. It's work. It's like everything, It's not given like that. You have it. We work on it. We try, and at least we're aware of it. Yeah. So we need to acknowledge with our words the complexity, the diversity of our thoughts. We have to look at them. We have to acknowledge it. We have the words. They give us emotion, and when we use them and we guide them and we direct them to be one, to serve the one goal that is really what we want. This is like, people have fears, people have phobias, people have inherited craziness or made up themselves craziness. They have beautiful traits and they have all kinds of things, but we are blessed to have all this. It's part of who we are. So we have to embrace it, and all the different pieces, the diversity of who we are, we have to put it all together. And this is the only way that we're going to feel whole and at peace. And in conclusion, I just want to say, Korach was a tzaddik. But yeah, Korach was a very big tzaddik. And if you look at the last letters of tzaddik, katamar, yifrach, that's pronounced the word Korach. He didn't see the unity. He felt like many of us, when we're in trouble, we think we're alone, we think we're solitary, nobody is there for us, and each one in their old world. But we have to see that each day bring their own message. Sometimes it's love, sometimes rejection, sometimes praise, sometimes being put down. But it all happens for us to have all these different little pieces. And all of our days, all of our thoughts, we have to unite, because Hashem made us that. And He's one, and we have to emulate Him and become one also. So there's no separation at the source. It all comes from a good place. This is our work. We talk to ourselves in a way. We talk to ourselves. Remember the 5 ways to talk to ourselves? Yeah? We talk to ourselves in a way that unites all the parts and pieces of us. And this is what brings us the blessings. And to accept. Yeah, it's a very good word. To accept, not only acknowledge, because we can figure out something about ourselves, but accept it is something else. So to acknowledge lovingly, and in our heart, we are to achieve unity. It's all part of us. We shouldn't say, oh, I hate this about myself. We can fix it, but why should we hate it? Acceptance, acknowledgement of who we are in its entirety. And it's okay, 1 minute we're going to say, oh, you're so stupid, but correct yourself. Correct. It's a bad habit, need to be corrected, yeah? And be careful, also have the vision of all the greatness and all the gifts that we are given and all the goodness that we receive every second and all the goodness that we can spread around. Hashem is there to give. Are we ready to accept and receive?